Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome to PNP. It is your boy Rashad, one half of PNP, and today I'm here to break down the salary cap implications for a team trading for Deshaun Watson. Okay, nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about what it's going to take to get him a first, multiple firsts. They're talking about adding in Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Jeremy Chin, J.C. Horn, but nobody's really talking about what's going to happen to the salary cap if this were to occur, because it's tough. It's a tough situation, and I'm here to break this down. Now, this could really apply to any team. You could take what I'm going to do, go to your team salary cap calculator, put it in, and see if it works. But I'm going to do this for the Carolina Panthers because that's my squad, all right? And the QB thirst is on full display right now. We can't contain ourselves. David Tepper is all in, hiring a private investigator to go check this situation out. And today's the day we're actually going to find out if Deshaun Watson will be charged with any felonies or anything like that for sexual misconduct. All right, so today's a big day. Now, if you're not part of the Noti gang and not watching this up front, just kind of check it out on the back end, pause, and see what happens. All right, so this is what's going to happen if the Carolina Panthers somehow magically trade for Deshaun Watson from a salary cap perspective. All right. Now, before we get into this, make sure that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, get the comments, let me know what's good. We're about 120 people away from 16,000 subscribers. Monumental. We're almost to 20K. We're pushing to 20K. I hope to get to 20K very, very soon. So let's make that thing happen. Hit the subscribe button for your boy. And if you want to help the channel out even further and you're about this game of skill life, you're about this daily fantasy, you're about this pick'em life, go to underdogfantasy.com, sign up using the code PNP. It helps the channel out tremendously. We use the product. Dave is a betting god, okay? He hit the 5-time, 10-time parlay a couple times, so he got money, and that's all based on Underdog Fantasy. Check them out and use the code PNP when you sign up. Calvin Ridley probably should have used Underdog Fantasy. If he would have, he would not have been in the situation he's in right now. But underdogfantasy.com, check him out. Now let's talk about it. Deshaun Watson, what happens if we trade for him? Okay, so let's talk about it. Now, we have to understand where we are to understand where we're going. All right, 2022, the base or the salary cap hit for Deshaun Watson, if he stays on the Texans, will be $40 million. The good news is that if a team trades for Deshaun Watson, they're only going to be responsible for the base salary. You understand? We talked about this a long time ago, but I'll give you a refresher. In the event of a trade, the signing bonuses or any bonuses are paid for by the team that owns that currently owns the contract. So the Texans will be responsible for paying all the bonuses. Now, I do have a question about the roster bonus. I don't know if that roster bonus is going to be paid by us or not, because obviously if it is, his cap hit is going to be tremendous in 2023. I do not know if that's the case. Either way, his deal can be reworked after we get Deshaun. But one thing that can't be touched is the $35 million that will be paid by a team that gets Deshaun Watson, because that is fully guaranteed and becomes fully guaranteed on March 22nd of this year. Okay, this $35 million becomes fully guaranteed on March 22nd. So any team that gets him has to pay him $35 million in 2022. Now, let's see what this looks like in action. All right, so as you can see, Carolina Panthers, we are currently sitting at $26 million in cap space. All right, that's where we sit right now. That's going to disappear very quickly once I go through this Deshaun Watson exercise. Let's go ahead and go through it. Deshaun Watson, let's add him to our roster, and let's see what happens. All right, so as you can see, base salary $35 million. That becomes fully guaranteed March 22nd. You cannot kick that money down the can. You can't restructure it. It's fully guaranteed. You can't touch it. So if you take them, you're taking on $35 million in 2022. All right. After that year, you can, all right, 2023, you can do some things. You can restructure, kick the can down the road, make some things happen. But in 2022, $35 million is what he's owed. So let's hit this year and let's do it. Let's do it. So now, as you can see, going back up, we are over the cap by $7 million, close to $8 million. We're going to round up and say $8 million. All right. Now, Shad, you saying, I hear you saying it, but Shad, we're trading some guys. Okay, fair enough. Let's see what the trades do. Let's just talk about the names that have been involved in the trade, because I think you guys need to see what actually happens, because the first round picks, they don't really affect the salary cap at all. I mean, it may affect future. It may affect it a little bit because there's a little less money you have to pay your rookies. So it does have a little bit of a effect on the salary cap, but overall, it doesn't really have a major effect. So let's talk about some guys. Let's talk about Derrick Brown. Let's say, okay, Derrick Brown, you want to add Derrick Brown to the deal? Let's see what trading Derrick Brown pre June 1 does. All right. So let's see what that does to the cap. It added to the cap. So that didn't really help us. That didn't help us out at all. So let's Derrick Brown. That we don't gain anything much by trading Derrick Brown. All right. Let's say Brian Burns. Brian Burns. He's been tied to it, right? Okay. Let's check that out. Let's do a pre. And we could do these June 1, right? You could do it June 1, but let's do it as if it's not June 1. Where'd he go? Brian Burns. Let's do a trade pre June 1. Let's see what happens. Let's cut this or enact this trade. All right. Now, as you can see, that helped us out a little bit, Brian Burns, but we're still over the cap. We are still over the cap. $5 million over the cap. We don't have any room to sign our rookies at the moment. It's not a huge deal because we can get that. We can get that. I'm just trying to make a point in that, you know, trading these guys doesn't help out the Panthers situation, right? It doesn't help us. The guys that we want, who else has been tied to it? Let's trade a Jeremy Chin. Let's see what trading Jeremy Chin does. Trading Jeremy Chin didn't do much. I get $1 million. All right. So I'm gonna undo that. And obviously gonna be multiple guys, right? You're talking about at least 2 guys. So let's say a Jeremy Chin and a Brian Burns. I would hate that, but let's just see what happens. All right, $4 million. I'm just doing some scenarios, okay? Because none of those really help us out. Trading guys that are on rookie deals are fantastic for the guys receiving them, but for the guys trading them away, it doesn't help our salary cap situation at all, right? Well, and then let's say Christian McCaffrey. Put Christian McCaffrey in a trade, right? Trade him. That doesn't really help us out either. So throwing Christian McCaffrey in a trade. That increases, right? Because you see what that does to the cap. That doesn't help us out much at all either. So I say that to say all these trade situations, right? We're going to have to do work to get under the cap, right? We talked about potentially restructuring. Let's restructure Christian McCaffrey. Why that hasn't been done yet? You know why? Because his name's been floated with these trade talks. Now we could. Now let me make this point. We could do a post June 1 trade. That helps us out a lot, right? If we trade him post June 1 and the trade goes active post or after June 1, you can do that. And then, all right, that puts us over the cap a little bit, right? That helps us out a lot. That puts us over the cap. So you could do a post June 1 trade. That could help out a lot. But look at what that also does for our salary cap in 2023. All right, so you're spreading that cap hit over 2 years. Sorry, you guys are not seeing it. So again, like we're still in a conundrum, right? Even if we trade for him, it doesn't solve everything, right? You still have to do work. You have to restructure some guys. Let's kind of go through some things here. A couple scenarios. You restructure Robbie Anderson. Now you still have to do work, right? You still have to do some work. It's tough. It's tough to find out how we're going to make it work with Deshaun Watson, paying him $35 million. And also what folks aren't talking about is how else are you going to re-sign Dante Jackson? We got a couple other guys that y'all still want. Dante Jackson, you're going to gut your defense potentially by getting rid of your best pass rusher, Brian Burns, right? You get rid of Brian Burns. Hassan Reddick's not coming back. You don't have room to re-sign him. And you're including a couple defensive pieces. So let's say a Derrick Brown and a Brian Burns. You're gutting your defensive line. So I don't know if it's practical to trade for Deshaun Watson. I don't. All right, let me undo all these. Let me refresh. And let me see if I can realistically come up with something. I'm on the fly right now. I did not plan this video out. I'm on the fly. I'm trying to make something work because I really want you to see how difficult this is to actually make it work. People can come up with all these scenarios, but to actually enact it is really difficult. It's difficult. So let's really take a legit shot at it, for real. Let's try to take a legit shot. So let's add Deshaun Watson. All right, so let's transact this. So again, we're over the cap, $7 million. All right, so where do I start? I would really like to trade Robbie Anderson because so what I want you to see is that one, we're at $7 million over the cap, but also look at what it did for our 2023. It literally cut this in half. It cut this in half, right? So we have to keep an eye on the future as well. That's important to me. So I need to trade Robbie Anderson. He has got to be traded. Let's just do a quick restructure first. Let's restructure first. A restructure puts us over the cap, or excuse me, we're still over the cap, but we dropped by 5 million, around 5 million. But also look at what it does for our 2023 cap. That does not help. That's not good. So what I need to do, let me get Deshuan back. My apologies. Get Deshuan back. Transact this. All right. So what we really need to do is trade, and to get the most cap savings, trade them post June 1, right? Post June 1. Let's submit that. Okay, so that helps us out a lot. That puts us over the cap, right? Puts us over the cap. It also helps out our 2023 cap a little bit, right? We got a little bit of flexibility. Okay, so we're good there. Let's try to keep Christian McCaffrey because realistically, we want to keep a weapon for Deshaun. We want to have him have some help. So let's take Christian McCaffrey off of the block. Although I think it's difficult to trade him, to be honest. I don't think we're going to get as much as we think we are. But just for hypothetical purposes, let's post June 1 trade Christian McCaffrey. All right. So now 13 million. Now we're talking. And then we're 69 million. We're freeing up some cap in the future too. So that helps. So I would like to, those are the guys that we really need to off. But let's undo this and keep a weapon around for Deshaun, right? And then because we didn't see his name tied to the trade, and I think they've been on record saying they didn't want Christian McCaffrey because I'm assuming they don't want the contract and he's hurt. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to move a CMC. That's just realistically. All right. So now let's go into it and let's talk about some of these other guys that were involved. Right. Let's talk about trading a Brian Burns because we know they're going to want a Brian Burns. I don't have a post June 1 trade option for Brian Burns. I don't know why. I don't know if that's because he's on his rookie dealer. I don't know if there's a rule around that. I do not know. But let's trade Brian Burns, and let's see what that does. So okay, so we're $7 million over the cap. All right, $7 million under the cap, excuse me, and that's including a Robbie Anderson trade as well. So we're in decent shape. $64 million next year. We're in decent shape next year. So let's also trade someone else that was included. Let's say a Jeremy Chin. Let's do let's just do a straight up trade. Jeremy Chin as well. So that $8 million over the cap. I think that gets you to scratching the surface. Now you're talking. Now you got a little bit more room. And then for the hell of it, let's go ahead and restructure Christian McCaffrey. Let's restructure Christian McCaffrey. All right. So we're $14 million under the cap. $14 million under the cap with $64 million going into 2023. And we have a franchise quarterback. I think this is a realistic scenario along with first round picks. Now, keep in mind, you're going to save about $7 million or so for your draft class. All right. I would say 5 to 7 because your first round pick, you probably wouldn't have it. So, and we also don't, well, it'd probably be less than that too because we don't have any day 2 picks. So it'd probably be around $5 million for draft picks. Let's just hypothetically say that. So we're not talking about $9 million to work with. Now you got a little bit of space to play with to potentially try and get somebody else. But you're really left with little to no room to actually improve the roster this season. Right? You still need guards. Where are we going to get the guards from? Robbie Anderson isn't going to yield us a day 2 pick, probably a day 3 pick. So we don't have any day 2 picks. We're probably going to trade away the first round picks, How do we improve our roster? How do we improve our roster realistically? So we have Deshaun Watson, great. Deshaun Watson has been great with bad teams. He's been great with bad teams. That's not what we want. We don't want a great quarterback with a bad supporting cast. And in this trade scenario, you're gutting your defense. No Brian Burns, no Hassan Reddick. Your defense is going to take a major hit. No Jeremy Chin, right? Because you got to include two young players, Jeremy Chin. Whether it's Brian Burns or Derek Brown, Brian Burns or Jeremy Chin, Yetur Gross-Matos or Jeremy Chin, whatever way you put it, you're gutting your defense. So your defense is going to take a step back, and then you have no picks to improve your offensive line. So guys, I say that, does it really make sense? Does it really make sense to trade? I put it out on the table, right? We can put all these hypothetical trade scenarios out there, and I know we're super thirsty for a quarterback. I get it. We're super thirsty. But we're going to potentially gut our defense. Our defense is going to take a step back. Offense could be great. Could we just go out and score more points? Deshaun Watson is going to help compensate for some of the offensive line problems. We still need guard help. We need a center. Although I do think Eflin is a serviceable center. But where else are we going to get the help on this roster? You're talking about, under this scenario, maybe just over $9 million to make some moves. You want to re-sign Dante Jackson? That's probably not going to happen. You're going to be slim pickings when it comes to picking up some guys. Deshaun Watson could be on suspension for a couple of games. So I just don't see how we're going to improve. The coaching staff is questionable. So, guys, that was me trying to make sense of it, right? And I want Deshaun Watson, but I also don't want to gut the team for him because it's counterproductive. You're just, the scales are just going to tip, right? You have a franchise quarterback, but just like I said, Deshaun Watson has been great with bad teams. His team hasn't been good. So what good is having Deshaun Watson if you're not going to have a good team around him? And given this scenario, we're not going to have a good team around him. So help me out. Am I right? Am I wrong? Get in the comments. Let me know what's good. Like, subscribe, notification bell, get in the comments, all that good stuff. Help me out. Does it make sense? Yes or no? I'm out. Peace.